Greetings and salutations, nerds. This is Praying for Superpowers,
a show about the deeper meanings, messages, and intricacies hidden within nerd culture. I'm Peter Jordahl.
And I'm Trevor Sharon, and today we're talking about Hope Deferred and the meaning of struggle.
So, the idea of hope deferred, what that means is, it means what it means.
Yeah, it is deferred
it's
hope.
Deferred.
Hope that is deferred.
So,
deferred meaning...
Yeah, if you have a place where... If you're in a place where you have hope for something, and it's kind of like the next shoe drops, the next bad thing happens, and then that hope is suddenly... You can't have it anymore, almost. Or to have it seems foolish. And that's what we're talking about today.
There's a quote that I love that just says, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick." And I think we see that a lot of the times, especially like we saw that recently with Infinity War, where we lost Spider-Man, we lost
all of the Guardians,
Doctor Strange, the Guardians, and it was this hope that they would be able to defeat Thanos, and it was deferred, and we came out of there sad. Right? What?
We've covered before. Trevor doesn't know how to pronounce anything. It is Thanos, not Thanos.
Whatever. You're deferring my hope.
It's like the fourth episode. You've done that. So it's
I also thought Joaquin was Jacquin.
Jacquin.
Oh, nice. But there's this moment where, and I think that is the feeling that we all left the theater with of... Man, it didn't go the way I wanted it to.
Yeah, my wife says she'll never watch Infinity War again. It's like Star Wars Rogue One. It's just like, it's so sad. Why would I?
Yeah. Or I know a lot of people didn't watch it, which sucks, but Han Solo, when I forget what his name is, but the four-armed guy at the beginning, the pilot, he dies pretty early in the movie.
Spoilers.
And he was such a good character, and
it was fun.
I was really excited to experience him throughout the movie, get more laughs, and then he dies, and it's this really sad moment. And we see this happen throughout literature and throughout games.
We see it in our own lives when Solo doesn't do well enough, so they cut the Obi-Wan movie that they were going to make. My hope has been deferred on that. So.
Yeah. And that's all everybody else's fault.
Everyone else's fault who didn't go see it in theaters, because I did. I was part.
I went, even though I wasn't expecting too much, but I knew this is for the future. Yeah. This is not for now.
Yeah. I mean, there's this. The best stories have hope deferred. We've talked again and again how Superman is not an interesting character. Unless he's struggling. So Superman pre-Crisis on Infinite Earths is not interesting because he has the powers to overcome any obstacle. Post-Crisis on Infinite Earths, they've narrowed him down, and his demons, so to speak, become emotional and instead of physical.
Yeah. And I think there's times in books, too, where hope deferred comes at the very end. And it doesn't end the way you wanted to, but there's still something satisfying. And maybe satisfying is too strong a word, but there's something tender about it. And I'm thinking about Paul Atreides in Dune, which I recognize as the book Dune, and then the follow-up book, Dune Messiah, and then everything else is supplementary. So at the end of Dune Messiah, Paul Atreides is blind. And as part of the tradition of the people that he is choosing to lead, he goes into the desert as a blind man to be swallowed by the worms, because that's what they did. And it's not the ending that I would have hoped for him. But in a way, it is such a beautiful and sweet ending to this character who has become a godlike figure in this culture, choosing to, in his final moments, live by the traditions of his people, even though it means his end.
Yeah, even in our own history, George Washington, a lot of people really wanted him to be king. They wanted a monarchy. They wanted his children to run the country, and he chose to leave. And to a lot of people, they thought it was the wrong choice. A lot of the representatives, a lot of the congressmen, what have you, the leaders wanted him to rule. and his family to rule. And he said, no, this needs to be a voted position.
Despite what Assassin's Creed tells you.
Right. Yeah. So, Hope Deferred. Believe Hamilton over Assassin's Creed when you're looking at your history, for sure. It's a classic, common thing that's very real. My favorite experience of it is in the Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
The end of the Two Towers. Frodo turns to Sam and he says, "I can't do this, Sam." And Sam says, "I know. It's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here. But we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo. The ones that really mattered. The ones that really stuck with you. Full of darkness and danger they were, and sometimes you didn't want to know the end, because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass, and when a new day comes, it'll shine out the clearer. Those were stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't, because they were holding on to something." And Frodo says, "What are we holding on to, Sam?" He says that there's good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. And that pretty much encapsulates the entire idea of what we're talking about right now, is that when it gets dark and when that darkness seems overwhelming to the point that you don't feel like you can continue on, that you have no reason to even fight because it could never even be good again, it honestly, you have to look past that. You have to see the light that will shine through that darkness.
If you haven't seen the Lord of the Rings movies, we get it. It's like a week long. But at least look up that one clip because the actor portrays that
Sean Astin.
In just such a powerful way. And I think that when it comes down to it, one of the best things when hope is deferred is to have somebody in your life who can remind you of the good, who can say, there is still good in this world. There is still good in this story. There is still good in you, and to encourage you. And maybe they carry you up the mountain physically or emotionally or metaphorically, but having somebody in your life who will encourage you that there is good. And if you don't have that, let us be the ones to say that there is still good in your story. There is still good in this world. There is still fun. Everybody in Infinity War is going to come back, and it may not be super satisfying, but they are going to come back.
They've already announced all the sequels to all the dead characters, so it's fine.
So that's one thing that's going to get better. Things do get better. Things grow. That's the way the world works. We aren't in a pit of despair with no way out. We're in a pit of despair with...
Pit of despair. The pit of despair. That's all I could think when you said that.
That's amazing. I love that movie. But there's good in this. There's good in this world. There's good fun. There's things to enjoy.
There's a quote from a doctor. I don't know his name, but he is a doctor of psychology, and he works mainly with inmates. And his quote is, "Well, you can always commit suicide tomorrow," is what he tells them. And it seems really dark from the onset. Basically, you can always give up tomorrow, and he says it's something that you can put off indefinitely, and it's something that you can never undo. So you might as well keep putting it off and see how good things can get.
Which is such a powerful image when you look at it as you can always give up tomorrow.
But you say that every day.
So you wake up the next day and you say, I can give up tomorrow. And I just liked reflecting on the resiliency, which just means the ability to push through of some of our heroes. And I often put myself in their position, like, especially whenever I'm watching a horror film, there comes a point inevitably where I'm like, all right, just get stabbed. Like, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, just give up. It's not worth it.
And you're really bad at running away.
And yet they do. They keep pushing. They keep fighting. They keep going, even when everything seems to be falling apart.
The entire Walking Dead series
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I'd be dead. I'd be dead before the series started.
Yeah, I mean, most people think they'd be a survivor when really 90% of the population is zombies. So
yeah,
you're probably gonna be a zombie. Let's be real.
But you could survive as a zombie if that's your definition of survival.
Those are, Warm Bodies. Look up that interesting movie.
Oh yeah, that was the emo.
Don't look it up.
Movie
it's weird.
World.
Yeah. I think there's kind of two ways you can deal with hope deferred, and it's you can keep striving for the light that you want to find, or what you can do is choose to kind of change your perspective, which is something else we're going to talk about in another episode, which is redefining success. But you don't have to. It doesn't have to be what you thought it would be. When something happens, you can change your outlook. There are two movies I really love. One is an older movie with Gregory Peck and Audrey Hepburn, so that dates it, Roman Holiday. And then another is more recent, La La Land, with Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone. So in both movies, two characters are obviously in love. They have adventures together. They live life together. And at the end of both movies, the main characters don't end up together. And it's, if you're watching, it can be kind of jarring, where you're thrown off by the ending you're not expecting. This hope is completely deferred. But I challenge you in your life when something like that happens to take a look at it and be like, I can still be happy outside of that, just because it didn't go the way I was expecting. In La La Land, Emma Stone is married and has children and has a good life. Ryan Gosling has his dream of owning his jazz club. In Roman Holiday, Audrey Hepburn is still a princess, and Gregory Peck is still a traveling newsman. So it's less interesting. It's from the 50s. It's a great movie. I love Roman Holiday, but I think I challenge that when hope becomes deferred is also change your outlook, and keep looking for the light. One of my favorite quotes of all time is from Avatar. Uncle Iroh, full of wisdom, says, "If you look for the light, you will often find it. But if you look for the darkness, it is all you will ever see." So
yeah, the way that we perceive our struggle really makes a difference in how we overcome, if we can. Because if you look at the darkness ahead of you, if Frodo and Sam look at the inevitable the odds in front of them of being able to make it to the heart of darkness, my least favorite book, but to be able to make it to Mordor as two little hobbits, the most passive and weak creatures in the world, and throw away a ring that destroys one of the darkest evils of their time, just the overwhelming pressure and the fear that would come with that perspective, as opposed to, I am going to do all that it takes to save my friends and to do what's right. And when you have a mission like that, when you have a goal that you're going towards, it's so much easier to conquer. It's so much easier to push through and to overcome. And sometimes it does take somebody reorienting that for you. And it's okay to reach out. We can talk about the different ways that we are seeing the world around us and the ways that we may be able to see it better, or in a way that's more positive and reinforcing our strength to get through.
Yeah, we can talk about when life kind of gives you the old 1-2 and knocks you down. You can go to people and say, "This is just the worst," and you can tell them that you don't have hope.
Mm-hmm. It's okay to be hopeless. That's just how things are sometimes. It's not okay to sit in that and to just mold over with hopelessness. We love the stories of the ones who push through, who wipe off the muck, and who stand up in the midst of great danger and say, "Bless you," and say, "This is what I am going to do. This is my mission, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to get through this." And then when they do, it makes that moment so much more beautiful, because we know what's happened to get there. When Frodo gets on the boat, it's all the more beautiful because we know the struggle and the toil that he's been through to get there, and to come to a point where he can say, The world is better for my story, and I am better for my struggle.